natural man is what I am. The natural man is what I am. Natural man is what I am, but not who. Well, who I be is something more than you could ever know. Unless you want to look deep in your soul. The natural man, that's what I am. The natural man is what I am. Whoa, whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Greetings, everyone. This is Light of Tabor. I'm your host, Mark Rattel. And today we have a very special guest. I say that every time, but I mean it even more this time. This is my brother in Christ, Mano Elia. And Mano is the host of Study of Stuff podcast. He's a musician / songwriter. He's an entrepreneur. I just want to thank you so much for being here today with us, Mano.
Mark, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. And I'm truly honored that you've had me on your show. Fan of your show, so it's good to be on your show. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for being here, man. We're super grateful and blessed. And yeah, we just wanted to bring Mano on to talk about his journey to Orthodoxy. He was born cradle, if I'm not mistaken. I always ask, I like to start out with like, were you raised in a Christian household? Obviously you were, because you were born cradle Orthodox. Maybe you could just tell us about like what that looked like for you, how your upbringing looked in your original household, and just like what that looked like for you. What was the faith like amongst your family members? And yeah, what was that like for you coming up?
Sure. So yeah, I was born Greek Orthodox and in a very traditional Greek home in Canada. Both my parents were immigrants. My father's from Cyprus. My mother's from Athens. And my dad is a very nationalistic Greek. And part of being a nationalistic Greek, it's often said, if you're not Greek, if you're not Orthodox. So obviously right. Orthodoxy had something to do with my upbringing, but my father viewed it more, and my family in general, more as a cultural thing. There was reverence and respect for the faith, so don't get me wrong, but it was more of an ethnic, nationalistic sort of thing. But along with that, my dad was an avid lover of history, so a lot of Greek history is revolves around the Byzantine Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. So that was a lot. That's kind of more of how I got introduced to the Orthodox concepts, was more through the historical aspect. Right. But there was a point where we were going to church a lot. Of course, Easter and all of those major holidays, we'd go to church and all that stuff. But it wasn't something that we did every Sunday. But there was a certain period in time where my parents kind of escalated a bit, and I started going to Sunday school as well. Roughly around the time my grandfather came to visit us in Canada. So yeah, I would say at one point in my life, it was like, as far as my family is concerned, it was a big deal, but mostly it was a cultural thing.
Right. And then you brought up your grandfather, and I've heard you bring him up in the past, and I wanted to ask you about him, and just like, what was he sounded like he was really just like a really big inspiration for you in the faith when it comes to Orthodoxy. And it sounds like he was a really, like, some of the stuff you told me was just kind of mind-blowing about how strictly he held to the fast during Lent. And I don't know, could you just maybe elaborate a little bit on your grandfather and maybe some of the inspiration that he's had for you in terms of Holy Orthodoxy and your journey to the faith?
Absolutely. I would say he's a big reason why I came back. My grandfather was a devout Orthodox Christian, like super devout. It was a lifestyle for him. It wasn't a choice. It was like drinking water and eating food. There was no separating life from faith at all. In everything he did, and every step he took, every plant he planted. He was a farmer. Every animal he ever slaughtered for us to eat, or any of that stuff, the faith was always involved. So when he came to Canada, I might have been like 8 or 9. He'd come for a visit. No, even younger, like 7, 8. He had come for a visit. I'd started to learn a lot of the faith in terms of like how to live Orthodox through him. Right. So he when he would fast, it was like a strict fast, like strict fast. He even had olives that in Greek we call them nistissima. They're just for fasting. So like they would squeeze out all the oil, because you're not supposed to have oil on certain days, for those that don't know.
Yes.
So he was very strict on his fast. Always on always on a Wednesday, always on a Friday.
So
He would not.
he would squeeze all the oil out of these olives, and he had like dry, and that's what he would eat, like dry olives with no oil in them.
That's right. That's right. It's
That's
customary in
intense.
Cyprus. It's a normal thing, well, amongst the old tradition, and they're called nistissima. Like literally, they're
Wow.
nistissi is to like fast, so they're called fasting
Yeah.
olives.
Oh
So yeah,
wow.
they would
That's
squeeze
really
out all
cool.
of it. Yeah, he's the real deal. Bread, if it had oil in it, he wouldn't eat it.
Wow.
So he was a huge inspiration. I'd say the biggest. And just like on my interview with Father Turbo, and I was just describing to him how my grandfather would always be whispering. He'd always be whispering to himself, and I'm like, almost like he was talking to himself,
Saying the
but I knew he
Jesus
wasn't
prayer.
nuts. Yeah, and I asked
Yeah.
him like, what are you doing? And he would say, my son, I'm just saying a little prayer. And
Mm.
when Father Turbo looked at me in that interview, and he said, that's why you're here, right? It didn't click
Oh
into me when
man.
he had said it, but it got me, because I think that is exactly what he was doing. He was just kind of praying for us, the Jesus prayer. So for him, it was a way of life. There
Yeah.
was no separating life from faith.
Man, that's super powerful. That reminds me of like what I feel kind of part of what I feel guided me through that experience that you've heard me talk about with the Wamkish, that psychedelic high dose psychedelic ceremony I was in. Part of what I feel carried me through was the prayers of my mother, who was constantly whispering under her breath, and just like she was Roman Catholic coming up. She's Orthodox now, and she was baptized with my whole family. So thank God for that. And
It's beautiful, beautiful.
yeah,
Glory to God.
yeah, glory to God. It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, no, that reminded me of that, and I was like, man, kind of gets me a little emotional. But it's a beautiful thing, man. It's true, man.
Yeah,
It's a true testament to the power of prayer and the wisdom of our elders. Trying to
absolutely, absolutely.
look out for the youth of the next generation, and us kind of, me wandering into these situations where the evil one's just waiting to devour and just like jump on me, pounce on me like a lion, and
Hmm.
but yeah, I wanted to what was your relationship with your father like? I haven't heard you. I think I briefly heard you mention your father in one of the other interviews, but I didn't get to hear too much about your relationship with your father, if you want
Oh,
to go into that.
absolutely, no problem. My father is
Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic, great father. My relationship with him is pretty good, especially now. It's getting even better. He's a big fan of my show.
Awesome.
Dads can be dads, and then like
Yeah.
he started watching a couple of them, and he was impressed. He liked the content. He liked the conversation, and so he's rooting for me on that. But my relationship with my father was great. Is great. I learned a lot from him. I still learn a lot from him. He as a first, he was he immigrated to Canada in 1967. So he was one of the very few immigrants that went to college and all that stuff. So amongst his friends, even he was considered a little bit more highly educated. But he was
Nice.
he's a humble man. He's a great man, great father. We always got along. His take on life is a little bit more. He leans heavy towards the Greek philosophy and the Greek
Mm,
philosophers. Heavy.
right.
His respect and veneration for the church is more, like I said, a cultural thing. He
Right.
loves that. He's really into like nationalism, and but I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a good way.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
don't take it as a
so
bad thing.
yeah, but I know nowadays in Western
Yeah.
cultures when you say, you know what I mean, like they get the wrong
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah. No, a lot of people do take it the wrong way, for sure.
They do, they
Yeah.
do, they do. So
Yeah.
he loved. So he taught me a lot about Greek culture, a lot about the language, which is very helpful now that I'm getting I'm revisiting my roots. So yeah, my dad's a fantastic guy. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about him. He's
Yeah. No
pretty awesome.
worries.
He's pretty
No
awesome.
worries. Thank God. Yeah. Thank God. That's awesome. I know that you're like a very open about your anarchist kind of tendencies. I wanted to ask, was there any life experiences that led you into that kind of path? Like, was there anything that happened in your life that kind of pushed you in that direction in any sort of fashion?
Yeah, part of being Greek, a lot of my answers are going to revolve around that because it's a big part of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've ever met a Greek person, it's like they say, Greeks are like vegans. They'll tell you, they'll let you know that they're vegan. Like that Greeks
Yeah.
are like that.
Yeah.
They're definitely
Yeah.
like that. That is part of our culture. A lot of Greeks are anarchists. I mean, the old Greeks, the modern liberal Greeks, I'm not very proud of currently. They were making a lot of bad decisions as a culture, but traditionally Greeks are anarchists in that say. Like they'll fight back, they'll argue, they'll take up arms and they'll fight a massive enemy. So that was kind of already instilled in me from youth through learning a lot about Greek history and culture. But I was always kind of like that as a person anyways. Like my dad would always say, like if someone told me what to do, I'd want to know why. Yeah, I'd want to know why
Exactly.
why that. Like I'll do it if it makes sense, but if it doesn't make sense, I ain't doing that. So a lot of
Exactly.
that. Then learning a lot about what we now call conspiracy theory, I kind of got into it early just to try to understand consciousness more so than the conspiratorial stuff. But like early things like realizing that the Federal Reserve is not part of the government and all that stuff. And it started to get me really thinking and just seeing a lot of the bad decisions being made out there. So I would say my anarchy came from just asking, well, why do you want me to do that? More than just like being a jerk, because I know a lot of anarchists or libertarians, they just want to be like contrarians. It wasn't necessarily being a contrarian. It's more just like, if it made sense, I'll listen. If it doesn't make sense, I'm just not going to do it. Right. And then that kind of stuck with me. I've never voted. So that was a kind of thing. So to me, it was just like, it makes sense, which is why Orthodoxy makes sense.
Yep. So, totally. Yeah, no, 100%. I know that you mentioned in the past, part of your veering away from Orthodoxy was going into like a slightly like occultism, New Age, and I think more specifically Hermeticism. Yeah. Could you go into that a little bit about what did that look like for you, and how did you come into that and then fall into that aspect of your journey?
Sure. If I veer off too far, just pull me back in, because
No, feel free to veer off as much as possible. I like veering off, honestly.
Awesome. Well, I got into that kind of stuff first through my exploration of what is consciousness. That was something that was always a part of. My dad would always say that was constantly a question I would ask, even as a youth, very young. I'd ask him things like, I feel like there's a guy inside me, like, and I'm like a robot moving it. My dad would like,
wow.
So I remember even thinking about that, like, who's that thing? What is that inside me? So that question stuck with me always, and it's always been, and it's kind of what led me down the path of what we call conspiracy theory, like I said, because you're trying to understand, like, the education system, what is religion, because you hear all these things, like it's, and then you try to find the difference between Catholicism and this and that, Buddhism, what's that? So I started asking a lot of these questions, and as I was doing that, I kind of started doing, going down the path we all have gone to. Like usually it's like New Age light. We're talking about late 90s for me, early 2000s. Then 9/11 happened. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I say the big event.
No, I'm honestly, I've got some questions here that are going to be a little bit more risky than that, honestly.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
So when 9/11 happened and all that stuff, then I started to take it a little bit more serious. So I started studying a lot of like physics, quantum physics, and all that stuff. That was like, a good entry point. But along the way, I started reading a lot of esoteric stuff. Like trying to understand things like Buddhism, Hinduism, leading me to Ayurvedic sort of philosophies, and then from there you go into like the Yogananda and like different types of Kundalini and Kriya Yoga and all that stuff.
Were you practicing yoga at all a little bit?
I was. It wasn't really my favorite, let's say, because I kind of found my home in Hermeticism, as you said. But I did practice a lot of that stuff along the way. So I did some qigong. Right. I did some like I looked into the East, both from China to Japan to India, and just kind of saw their different practices. And I kind of came back home to more of a Hellenistic approach. Being that I'm Greek, right? So Hermeticism is kind of tied into it, right? So I kind of went that way. And then, of course, my father was a big proponent of Socrates and Aristotle and all that stuff. And a lot of that is intertwined with Gnosticism, the ancient version of Gnosticism. There's different forms of Gnosticism, so not to go too far. Long story short, this track, and of course, Terence McKenna and Robert Anton Wilson and all these characters, I would read their material, and Drunvil Melchizedek and a few others, and they were like New Agey, I would call them now. And they would always make references to certain things that led me to Hermeticism, usually because they would describe Thoth, the Egyptian god. Right? So the Egyptian god Thoth is the Egyptian version of Hermes, So when the Greeks went to Egypt and they were introduced to Thoth, they said, "Oh, he's very much like our god Hermes." So then they named him. Oh, this character is Hermes, thrice great. So they gave him the names Hermes Trismegistos, meaning Hermes, thrice great. So when you read a lot of Hermetic texts, you'll hear about Hermes Trismegistus. It's pronounced in English.
Yeah. Yep.
So it literally in Greek it means thrice great. It means like our Hermes, but 3 times better. So a lot of that philosophy was like Greek versions of Egyptian philosophy, but a lot of it was condensed in a book called the Kabbalion, which I have here, and I'm going to be talking about that on some podcasts because now it's getting very popular and it's dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
Very. I would say it's probably, in my opinion, I might be biased, but in my opinion, it's probably one of the most dangerous occult books out there because it simplifies this complicated stuff. Because Hermeticism extremely is complicated. It's it's shrouded in a lot of mystery.
It makes it very accessible for the general public.
Precisely.
Like even people on a
Precisely. So when you get things like the law of attraction, that's a condensed version of stuff from here, and this is a condensed version of very complicated, like a lot of babble and garbage, really, philosophical roundabouts, I would call it, in Hermeticism and Gnosticism. So this is a condensed version. So to me, unfortunately, forgive me, I used to call this my Bible.
Right.
So for me, the 7 principles in here were kind of what I focused on. So a lot of my practice was focused on meditation and meditating a lot of the concepts on here. In terms of like what type of meditation I did, I kind of took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and I kind of all mixed it together. So I didn't fall into one category more than another. Like I wasn't more like, like a lot of people would go down the Hindu path and do yoga and this and that and a lot of different types of mantras, or they would go down the more Asian path, like Chinese or ancient,
with like David Patrick Harry, if I'm not mistaken, from like martial arts training and kind of getting into
Exactly. So he's a proponent of the Tao Te Ching, and the Tao Te Ching was actually the Tao is pretty cool because like
it is actually it's one of the closest things to orthodoxy that's outside of it that I could find.
Exactly.
Sure.
And it is.
I still need to read Christ the Eternal Tao. I still need to read that one.
So good.
Yeah,
and the way it's written, and it explains, and the explanation is just bang on. It's like Lao Tzu was describing Christ, describing what we see as the logos. For those that haven't read the book, it's remarkable. So to me, this was the Hermetic principles were at that time. This is how I looked at it, as like the Greek Egyptian version of the Tao Te Ching. So a lot of the stuff in the Tao are similar to this. The difference now that I see is the Tao was kind of having more of a philosophical questioning of like, what is this thing behind all things? Here they were trying to give a definitive answer to it. In my opinion, now looking at it in hindsight, it's very Luciferian. The concepts are extremely Luciferian, and that's the problematic part. Very problematic. So I hope I answered your question. Didn't veer off too much. But that was a big part of my life. So a huge part of my life.
Yeah, no, that definitely answered the question. And I actually kind of like the veering off and the rambles and all that. I think it's fun and adds to the podcast, and that's part of what I love about you. But I wanted to talk about, so going from there, did you start hitting any roadblocks? Was there any experiences in Hermeticism, in occultism, in New Age, in any regard that started like maybe you encountered any sort of demonic activity, or you started seeing or recognizing that maybe you were moving in a direction that you didn't want to be moving in? Was there any wake up calls or anything that happened when you were on that path that maybe jolted you or shocked you out of it and made you start reconsidering orthodoxy, or did it come in a different fashion?
Absolutely. Great question. It was a process coming back to orthodoxy, but part of it was what you're describing.
Right.
Yes, I had a lot of encounters in deep meditation. I didn't do psychedelics as frequently as a lot of others that are in that camp.
So you did engage in psychedelics, but not super often.
Not super often, but I did do a heavy dose like yourself. I wasn't sure because I still don't know the amount exactly, but it was either 13, 14, or 15 grams, all like not all at once, but within a night. So I've done that. I've gone down that path. But most of my exploration was in deep meditation and using a lot of those different types of techniques. So like we would call energy work. I hate that term,
Yeah.
but I did a lot of that stuff. Encounters. I could tell you a lot of the experiences. I mean, when you were on my podcast, you were talking about the blue orb and stuff like that. I didn't specifically have that one, but I've had very similar experiences, flashing lights, feeling a presence, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the things that got me rethinking things was the emptiness, the concept of nothing. Really,
Right.
at the basis of all of these things, it's
What it
really
starts
nothing.
leading to at the end, huh, is like a nothing, like a nihilism, a nothingness. Like at first it doesn't
Exactly.
start like that, but I think as you
Exactly.
start going down that path deeper and deeper, you're like,
Exactly.
wait, this is leading to like a dark pit of nothingness.
Exactly. And that was something that always stuck with me, and it always bothered me because there's no identity to yourself after you pass. According to a lot of these traditions, you just become part of everything, and if you're part of
Right.
everything, then you're part of nothing. Like if everything's
Right.
beautiful, there's no ugly. Like if there's no ugly, there's no beautiful. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I found a lot of contradictions in that way because they talk a lot about like contrasting light to dark. But then I was thinking, well, if there's no good and there's no evil in your concept, well, then what is everything? Just nothing? We're all part of something.
It doesn't
nothing?
even. Yeah, it like falls apart upon itself real quick.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I that's where I started to see the sorcery of it. That's where I see
Right.
like
Because they
is a
trick you
con
from the
job.
foundation. The foundation is a trick, and if
Exactly.
you accept that, then from there you can accept any deception.
Exactly.
Boom.
Exactly. And then the
Yeah.
redefinition of terms and all that stuff. I started to see a lot of that. So that's the key controlling factor. They just rename things, and then they just change the meaning, and therefore they just play with words, and it just kind of slowly moves you to this area of nothing. And that really bothered me. So in certain deep meditations, like I would go deep, like I would hours of meditations, and I would try to access that point, and you'd get to this point where you would see a light. Now I see it as false light. And you would see like sparkles and this and that. That was my experience, and it was kind of like you would feel presence and almost see like with your eyes closed, you'd almost see a light of like an outline of a being there. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. So I don't know what was real or what wasn't.
Yeah, I know it's hard to tell.
It did feel real. It did feel real.
Yeah.
And then just the emptiness of it wasn't okay with me. And then in 2019, right before all the stuff that happened in 2020, I did my huge drop, like where I went. My band was playing at this.
What was the name of your? Was it the Drop Ops?
The drop up. The drop ups was my.
The Drop Ups. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
The drop ups. So we played this festival, and I went. Like I took a whole bunch of mushrooms. I went for it. I had some experience taking large doses, but this was by far the most.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience I had there, I connected it to the nothing, and that kind of got me out. And the experience that I had was really bizarre. I took I probably about 7 or 8 grams at once, and then I heard music. So I was tripping at this point. I heard music from the stage because other bands were playing, and then they were having like a free jam. So I walked to the stage, and I remember looking at the stage and seeing my friends, bandmates, all on stage, and people calling me up. And then everything started to slow down and stop. Like, I mean, everybody stopped. Like literally everybody was frozen, standing there. And I remember hearing the music continue. So in my brain, there was a part of me that was conscious enough to go, wait, everything's frozen. Like, I mean, literally it was frozen, but I could hear the music moving. So somehow consciously, there was a part of me that understood, wait a minute, if music's still moving and everything's frozen, that means time is still moving and I haven't stopped time. And then I started thinking, I have the ability to stop things.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I didn't know what was going on. And then my drummer threw something at me. Like he was like, you know, he could just kind of saw me spacing out. So he threw something at me. I don't know what it was. And I kind of came to, and I just remember, get out of here, get out of here. So I went to my tent alone, and I stayed there alone. So I did the Terrence McKenna, you know, heroic dose. Oh, right before this, I took another like handful. So my friend that was giving me all the mushrooms, he said you took between 13, 14 grams. Yeah. So at this point, I'm peaking. It must have been like an hour or two later. And the experience I had in the tent alone was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was crazy. As you've had your experiences, they're difficult to describe. But I just remember seeing like bizarre geometric shapes spinning, but they were hollow. And inside there was a woman's face that would pop out and then turn out. I don't remember what they were saying to me. I don't remember what was going on. But I remember you know, when you're in a deep psychedelic experience, you may not remember the specifics, but you remember the meaning that you're like, you know what I mean? You get the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, like the spirit of it almost behind it. Yeah, like the feeling of the
Exactly.
whole vibe of it, or yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And the feeling I got was empty, like a lot of nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was being conned. Like there was
Yes.
like there's something's not
Yep.
right here. I'm
Yep.
being tricked, you know,
Man,
I'm getting tricked.
that's how I felt at the Womkish.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
your story I could relate a lot to when I heard when we were talking about it. So after I kind of a couple days after that, I kept thinking about that nothing that I kept feeling in meditation, and that part of me that was so annoyed that like, what is all this for nothing? I rather just like not know that there's nothing. You know, that was
Right,
ringing in
right.
my head. Like I would rather just like I don't want to know that. Like it's just meaningless.
Yeah.
So, but I ignored it. And then I just kept going. And then how I came back to Orthodoxy was it was a process. So I don't know if you want me to get into that now because it's a little bit of this, but there's a lot
Well,
of other.
I wanna touch on one day that
Yeah, yeah.
one night when you were taking all those mushroom. Did you guys did your band play that night? Were you guys performing?
We did. We played, but I wasn't. I wasn't high or anything like that. I
Oh, so
played
you were
sober.
sober when you played.
Yeah, I always
Okay.
played sober. Always. I think I took a bit
Smart.
of like I took some like during the last song, but I wasn't buzzed on stage. I never ever drink or smoke or anything back then when I was on stage.
Awesome.
Never.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. I respect that, man, because I know it's just sad to see like super talented artists get up there and then like kind of just not be themselves, and it's like you know what they're capable of, and they're just, you know, it gets out of hand quick, you know. And
Absolutely.
but yeah, you know what, if you want to delve into the Orthodox, segue into that from here,
Sure.
that'd be perfect actually, because I think that's the perfect point to go from where you started recognizing some of the demonic aspects of that hermeticism and that new age, and then like, so how, yeah, from there, how did you end up finding your way back to Holy Orthodoxy?
Glory to God for that. Wow. Well, the first like what moment was around I think 2014. I was listening to Jay Dyer
Nice.
and another guy named James Perloff, who's also a
Mm,
conspiracy guy, wrote a great book called "Truth Is a Lonely Warrior." Great title. I like,
mm. I
and
love that title.
it's true. It's
I
true.
live that, I
It's
live
true.
that title. Lord have mercy.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And Jay had mentioned in an interview in 2014 something about e- Orthodoxy and Eastern Orthodoxy and like roll call. And I'm like,
Right.
what? Like Orthodoxy, like this? Because up until
Right.
that point, like you know, nobody knew. Like none of my like unless you're my Greek friend, my Serbian friend, my Romanian friend, or my Russian friends. They're like, what is that? Like you're Jewish? Like you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
don't know what
no,
it
so many
means.
people assume that you're an Orthodox Jew when you tell them that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And
Even still to this day, some people, yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
So he's saying Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. I'm like, this guy's Orthodox, like us. So to me, it was still a nationalistic thing. And then James Perloff
Yeah.
also had mentioned something similar too. And I'm like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
But I ignored it, and I didn't listen to a lot of his talks on that subject matter. It was mostly his
Right.
conspiratorial stuff and this and that.
Yeah.
And as time went on, I always stuck in the back of my head, and I'm like, this guy who I trust on a lot of information is Orthodox. That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always in the back of my mind. So the fast forward to like 2020, all this stuff going on. I'm still deeply immersed in the new age. I already have all these questions. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I started studying. I started to go deeper into social engineering and culture creation. So I'd always been interested in that subject from like my early conspiracy days. You know, Sigmund Freud's grandson Edward Bernays wrote Propaganda and all that kind of stuff. I was really into all that stuff and how
Yeah.
all that stuff was designed to engineer society and all that stuff and the whole hippie culture, all that. So I was always into that stuff. And then I decided to go a little bit deeper, and I had heard about the Tavistock Institute for many years, and I started to take that study a bit more serious. So I started going deeper into that because I remember back in the old conspiracy days in old message boards, even if you mentioned the Tavistock Institute, they would take it down. They wouldn't be other things
Wow.
would be open to, you know, but that one
Couldn't
they
even
couldn't talk.
off limits. Wow.
Totally off limits. So, anyways, and I remember this one document, a book called "The Changing Image of Man," the changing image of man, not the changing image, changing images of man, right? So that book was put together from the Stanford Research Institute. It's a long story. Tavistock's involved in it, and I decided to finally look into it because I remember hearing about it from a lot of like key conspiracy guys, you know, as far back as I can remember, including Jay Dyer and many others, and Alex Jones and many others. So I started to look into it, and I started to realize that the document, it means what it says in the title, changing image of man. Like they want to change the image of humans.
They tell you exactly what they're doing a lot of the time, and it's so in your face that you don't even believe it until you see it. And then it's like, what? How did I not see it?
Right.
It's like, you know, it's like,
yes.
Crazy.
They never hide things. They have to tell you. It's part of the agreement, right? They have to.
It's part of like that. Isn't that part of like it's like magic.
It is magic. It has to be consented upon. You can't, so they can fool you. That's why I obviously refer to the bad guy as the great deceiver, because that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's the great liar and the great deceiver. But at the end, if you ask, like from what I've been told, when people have encountered aliens, demons, or anything like that, when you flat out ask them a question, they have to answer it. So when you call upon the name of Jesus, that's why they
like,
leave.
do you acknowledge Jesus Christ as God?
Exactly.
Right.
Because
they don't like that question.
Exactly. And just like the little shot that some people took, not us.
Yeah.
A lot of people took, they needed the consent. Even if it was coercion, you still consented to it. It was a requirement. It's a contract. It's a spiritual contract, and it's a must to understand.
100%.
So back to the changing images of man, I started to look into it, and it's got a lot of authors and a lot of names everyone recognizes. But I started to see like Joseph Campbell had a big part to do with it. And Joseph Campbell, for those that don't know, he's a mass, like, and nobody that you touch in the New Age, if you just go behind the people, anybody in the New Age, in one way or another, is influenced by him and influenced by Carl Jung and other key names, the Huxley brothers and all that. So all of a sudden,
Aldous Huxley.
Exactly. And Joseph Campbell is also the person who gave George Lucas the Gnostic lore for Star Wars and this and that kind of stuff, right?
Interesting.
So I'm like, why are these and another guy, Ezrin Laszlo, he's like, not everybody, he's not as popular as everybody else, but whoever you like in the New Age and the occult loves that guy. Ervin Laszlo. Everybody loves him.
There's a reason why people follow Star Wars like a religion, man, because there's 100%. Religious components to it, like, through and through. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. And that's a very, very true statement. And it is a religion. It is a religion. I mean, that's why they're like freaks about it, right?
Yeah.
So Ervin Laszlo was one of these authors, and he's the guy that really coined the term. He didn't come up with the term, but he coined the term Akashic Records. The term comes from
I was trying to tap into those things for years, dude. Lord have mercy on me. I was over there astral projecting, like I was just trying to tap into that. I was 100% like I'm focused on the Jesus prayer now. I was like, my whole goal for like maybe a year at least, maybe more, I don't know. But like, I mean, I was really focused, trying to astral project and tap into the Akashic Records. I'm like, I'm gonna get all the knowledge of the universe and I'm gonna take over and just shut it down.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to do. Honestly,
absolutely.
I was going. Too. Because the way it's presented in such an attractive way. It's presented in such a mystical, this like, you can have there's this place that you can go to. If someone tells you there's this place you can go to with all the knowledge of everything, of history, like how attractive of an idea is that to a young mind coming up, trying to learn the truth, searching for truth. You're on a truth journey. You're like, man, if I could get all the truth, I could just tap in and just have it all.
Exactly.
It sounds so attractive. It sounds so appealing. But man, it's a little different than that when you start going down that path.
Absolutely. And it's something that all New Agers practice one way or another, even if they don't know it. So when you go into that the no thing, and you get the information, you're pulling it out of, like, for them, you pull it out of nowhere. That is the Akashic Records that are described. And the guy who first came up with the term was Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet from early 1900s. 6
of his books, dude. Still.
So me too. I have him in Canada. Edgar Cayce. He coined the term Akashic Records, and
I didn't know he coined that term. I did not know that, but it doesn't surprise me at all, considering what he was engaging in, which was exactly.
he took an old Hindu word, the Akasha, and then he kind of like formulated in one of his like trance states, and he came up with this concept of the Akashic records, which we all believe, if you're Orthodox for sure, that he's tapping into some demonic stuff and
He's
demonic stuff.
getting information from demons, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's actually, yeah.
Exactly. So anyways, where was I? Akashic records. At Irvin Laszlo. So the changing images of man. So I started looking at this document, and in the document, it was pretty clear that a lot of the people that were hugely influential in the New Age world were all these people that were engineering society to go in this direction, to go into the direction of psychedelics and festivals and Burning Man and meditation and all this stuff. And they make a lot of references to Scientology as a positive thing. They make reference to the Masons.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It really is crazy. And this was from a university.
Like, you could make a better argument for the Masons than you could for Scientology. But like trying to do Scientology. They're both crazy, but like Scientology is nuts, man.
It is. And if I'm not mistaken, L. Ron Hubbard was buddies with Aleister Crowley, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember.
That would not surprise me. Did you ever see the South Park episode on Scientology?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I don't want to get too sidetracked. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it's kind of funny.
No, I should check that out because I need some stuff to laugh at nowadays.
Yeah, it's a good laugh for sure.
So basically that document and going into the changing images of man made me go, maybe there's something to consider here. Something's not right. And the deeper I went into the social engineering part and started putting pieces together, things that I already knew from the past, but I started kind of like making a better mind map of it, if you will, and then started to take the 7 principles that are in the Kabbalion and going, okay, a lot of these make sense. They make practical sense. Like a lot of them, if I describe them to you, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And it does make sense. But the missing component, and here's where we get to the Orthodox stuff. The missing component is that what they're describing as reality, what they're describing as gods, plural, little g.
Right.
What they're
the gods of the
describing,
nations are demons. Yeah.
Exactly. All that stuff. What
Yeah.
they're describing really is it's sub God. It's not God. And then you have to understand, like, okay, from the Orthodox perspective, when I started looking at some of the stuff that a lot of you guys were all saying online, because then I started to get onto online and like, what's going on? Then I started listening to more David Patrick Harry, so more of Jay Dyer, Seraphim Hamilton, and a bunch of others.
Good. He's awesome.
He's great. And they started to break down things and give me a different perspective of how to see things. And I started to realize that a lot of the concepts that I was learning, it's not that they're incorrect. They were just looked from the different perspective. It's like you're looking at like a pencil and you're looking at it from the wrong side, but there's an entire side and it's all encompassed. And the difference was that God, like all this stuff without God, is nihilism. All this stuff without God has no explanation. So then I started to invert a lot of the things that I was learning from the Kabbalion and see that the answer was orthodoxy. So like, I also
you inverted the inversion and made it right side up.
Exactly. I took a male approach and just studied the crap out of everything until I just got there. That's kind of how it happened. And it was a weird time for me because a lot of my beliefs were being torn apart. It's still difficult, and trying to put things together. But I was ready for it. Let's put it that way. It's like God knew I was ready for me to deal with this, and it was learning that my perception of what it meant to be Orthodox was heavily filtered through the Catholic and Protestant point of view. So then I started to think, so I had 3 points of view to what Christianity was: Catholicism, Protestantism, and Gnosticism. So when I started to see that my entire view of Christianity was completely false, and that all the issues I had with Christianity were not actual issues with real Christianity, with the pre-denominational Orthodox church, like heaven and hell and all that stuff explained from the Orthodox perspective, made sense. The hospital, that I always reference that because that to me was a very big entry point. Looking at everything as a hospital made sense. Just total made sense.
Yeah, no, that's a big one for me too. Man, that's really cool. So when you were coming back to Orthodox, were you able to, because I know where you're at right now, you don't have any churches near you. Were you able to attend liturgy at all coming back to Orthodoxy, or has this been more of a personal journey just because of your geographical situation at the time?
Great question. And I'll go back to my grandfather. So I'm gonna try to not get sentimental here. So before we left Canada to come to Mexico, I was most definitely not Orthodox, but I had questions, and my mom insisted that I take with me this Bible, and she gave it to. I'm like, forgive me. I was kind of like, whatever, it's kind of cute. She wants me to take the Bible,
Right. I know that feeling.
and
Yeah.
then she goes, no, it's the one that your grandfather gave you. I was like, okay, whatever.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So
Yeah.
she gave it to my daughter. She gave it to my daughter for her to bring here. And I had forgotten he had written in it something in Greek. And I can't read it out loud because I just can't. Anyways,
Oh, man.
when I started to kind of like rethink things, I went and I grabbed it. And I'm like, that's why he gave it to me. Like, that's why he wrote this and he gave it to me. So I was in Mexico. I had all these questions. I really wanted to go to church for the first time in so long. All I had was this Bible in Greek, and that's it. And then no churches around, none of that stuff. So it's ironic, or maybe not so ironic, that in Toronto, like, there's a million Orthodox churches everywhere. You can go any denomination. Any jurisdiction. It was like a 10-minute walk. Really, that
So
many.
lots of Orthodox churches up there.
Lots. Like
Nice.
Serbian or Greek, whatever, Antiochian, you name it, it's all there.
Yeah.
But here, where I am specifically, there's zero, like none.
Yeah.
So it's not even a choice.
Yeah.
So I basically, I interviewed Father Turbo. That was my answer. I was like, I'm going to interview Father Turbo. So
yeah, that was such
the
a
beginning.
powerful stream, man. That was such a powerful stream that you did. Like, man, that one, I go back and watch that all the time, man. There's some really powerful moments in there. It's just really powerful stream. I miss the Royal Path podcast so much right now, man. I can't wait till they come back. I'm always waiting for it.
I know. I needed it this week too. I mentioned it on my last stream. I'm like, come on, guys, I need one now.
Right?
Yeah, but
it always comes. It comes at like very kind of random, sporadic moments, and it's usually when I need it the most. I'm like, oh man, I needed that right now. I thought I needed it, but it's like, it'll come at the right time.
Very true.
Yeah. So speaking of living up in Canada and moving, your whole moving situation, I'm just gonna come right out. I'm not gonna say like the word, but how did the whole COOF situation, like, how did that, I'm sure it had a huge effect on your family situation. I'm pretty sure the whole lockdown situation up there in Canada, I think it was a little bit different than it was here in America, depending on there's different states and different locations doing different things, but I don't know exactly what it was like. If you could describe what it was like for you dealing with the whole COOF situation up there with your family, what was that like for you, and what effect did that have on you and your family?
Sure. Huge. It still does. Well, I knew it was coming in 2019 just because I was one of those conspiracy guys. So I remember reading the Lockstep document, and then I'd heard about the Event 201 stuff. So like, I never bought into any of it. I was screaming, this is BS from the get-go, from the first drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same here.
It was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And Toronto was bad. I heard Los Angeles was hardcore. Most of California, definitely LA. New York was hardcore. So Toronto was like both of those combined. So it was super hardcore.
Dang.
It was almost instantaneous. Mandatory masks everywhere.
Oof.
Almost instantaneous.
It's crazy.
We were definitely probably one of the first lockdowns right away. And it was extreme lockdowns. Like, I remember I only took a week off work because then they asked, the factory said, anybody want to work during I'm like, I'll work. I don't want to be at home, right? So I went to work. Lockdown started. It was like a week in, and I went back to work. But traveling to work, dude, it was creepy, man. It's like, you ever see The Walking Dead where they're walking through Atlanta and there's like nothing. It's just, there's a highway with just cars.
Or like the last Man on Earth with Vincent Price. Like that's a throwback.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, totally,
exactly like
totally.
That.
Yeah,
exactly
those post-apocalyptic vibes where it's like, where did everybody go?
It was exactly like that. Like, I remember sitting on a bridge, looking down on the highway, like one of the busiest highways in Toronto, and there's nothing. There is nothing. Right. And it was extreme, and it lasted for the whole time. That like, they didn't let up until after I left. My work at the time was super woke. Like they were woke before woke was a term. So they were like all loving it. They were everybody was ratting on each other.
Oh man.
They didn't I was like a model employee up until that point. So even if you had your mask here, people would like tell on you. If I was in a room
Oh,
alone,
that's disgusting.
it was horrible, man. It
Lord
was
have mercy.
ridiculous.
It just,
Yeah,
and see, a climate like that, it breeds bitterness even in good people sometimes. You know, it's like it's hard
absolutely.
not to get
Absolutely.
bitter when you see like these situations bring the worst out of people, and it's like, man, how do I kind of rise above this and try to like, how do I navigate this, you know, in a Christian way? It's so hard to navigate something like that,
Oh
man.
yeah. Oh yeah. It is. A lot of friends turned when the BLM stuff happened. Friends of mine, I'd never made any comments about anything, started looking at me like I was a racist at that job
Yeah,
because it was super woke.
yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. Then they started to mandate the jiggy jags, the jibby jabs, whatever.
Yep, 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 yep,
And
for sure.
in Canada loved it. So the
Man.
prime minister or whatever you want to call him announced in September 2021 that as of December 1st, you couldn't leave the country or enter the country without a pass. So it gotten to
And
that point.
you get that pass through the GB jab. You gotta have a GB jab to get the pass.
Correct.
Right.
It had to be up to date and all that at that point.
Oh,
So,
so you not only like the GB jab, but like the follow-up GB jabs.
oh yeah. By that
Oh
point,
wow.
at that point there was two, and they were bringing the third. And friends of mine, oh, not friends of mine, but
Dude, the logic of that. You have to
horrible.
get this, but then you have to get this and this and this and this and this and this. It won't work
Yeah,
unless you get 8 more. What the heck, dude?
exactly.
Where is your logic, guys?
Oh,
Like, I'm sorry, I get
man.
frustrated just like thinking back on it. I was so like, if you look
Yep,
back at my videos during
yep.
2020, I was wilding out. I'm sorry, I was
For
trolling super
sure,
hard. I was just clowning, and
for
honestly, I
sure.
don't even regret it. I don't regret it because it was ridiculous.
Yep.
I was honestly in my own way. I didn't really know how to be, but I was trying to be a fool for Christ. Like I was just like I was trying to mock the whole thing because it was so stupid.
It's so
It was such a slap in the face to God's creation. I was like, this is I'm just gonna crap all over this. You know, I just don't.
absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's hard not to get worked up dealing with these subjects. Even now, even as an
Yep.
Orthodox Christian, even I prayed this morning. I can't. I get like in the moment. You know, it's just anybody who's honest and really cares about people should be frustrated by this
Yes.
situation.
Yes. And like in keeping with that, some people are I'll be like, why can't you let it go? Like people that bought into it. I'm like,
Mm-mm,
I'm not.
no,
I'm like, I'm not bugging you. You're making comments. My
no,
concern is this: if you're stupid enough to fall for that, I'm afraid for the next time. Like
exactly.
I don't want you to be my neighbor. Like
You're a liability. You're a liability
absolutely,
in my circle. You're a
absolutely,
weak link. You can't be in my circle if
absolutely.
you see. It's like one weak link in the chain, man. The evil one's gonna weasel his way in, and then he's
Boom,
in, and then he
boom.
can. You know what I mean? It's like it's so quick, you know. And one weak link in the chain, it's so
Oh,
crazy, man. You
absolutely.
get
Like
yeah.
Easter that year, 2021. So for Greeks, I mean, even if you're not Orthodox, like super religious, if you're Greek, Easter is like massive. I'm sure it's like that with other Orthodox countries as well. But I'm saying like even if you're not like practicing Orthodox, but you're a Greek kid, like Easter is like the event of the year. Like loved it. It
That's
was
awesome.
awesome. The meat, the food, the family, all
I've
that
gained
stuff.
such a new appreciation for Easter Pascha as an Orthodox man. It's just like Pascha this year, this last Pascha, we had the worst Lent ever and the best Pascha ever, and it made it that much better.
Yeah,
It was
so
like it was
true.
amazing. I had to suffer so hard. I really did. I suffered super hard, and it was like, and then making it through that, and then the Pascha and just the camaraderie and the
Yep,
brotherhood and the family and just everybody and the service before it. It was literally like a piece of heaven. It was
agreed.
beautiful.
Agreed.
I even
And
got the Pascha cheese. I even got to try the Pascha cheese this year, dude. I got to try the Pascha cheese.
yes, and that's the cool thing is like because a lot of other cultures like Greeks, Russians, Serbs, whatever, they all have like different traditions. So it's cool when you go to like a
Yeah,
Serbian guy's house and they have like, have you ever tried this weird thing? We do it every year for Easter, and I was like, oh, it's
yeah.
so cool. It's so cool. But I
Because I think
remember
the
that
Pascha cheese, I believe it's a Russian tradition, if I'm
I
not
think it is.
mistaken.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think the Serbs have a version too. We don't. Well, I mean, we have like other things, but yeah, they have specifically, they're religious about that cheese. They just go
Yeah, man.
nuts for the cheese. It's so cheese.
Yeah, I heard Father
It's
Turbo
good.
talk about it. He was like, because they were talking about on one Royal Path episode, they were talking about like, what are you looking forward to eating on Pascha the most?
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
all
yeah.
went around. I love those kind of like those little conversations. And he was like, the Pascha cheese. Father Turbo was all about the Pascha cheese. And I was like, dang, that must be good, man. I gotta get my hands
It
on
is
some of that
good.
Pascha cheese. And yeah, he was right. It's bomb. It's amazing.
It is.
Pascha
It
cheese,
is.
dude. So I wanted to talk about, you have a lot of projects you're working on. You're working on lots of projects. It's kind of similar. It reminds me of me, and it's like I'm all over the place, and I'm like trying to do like 16 things at once, and like I
It's
don't
the
have
best.
anybody to help manage me, dude. You got like your nephew. I think he helps manage you a little bit, kind of like
Yeah, he helps.
direct some of the ideas. What are some of the projects you're working on right now? I know you have the study of stuff, obviously your podcast, which is awesome. I think there's something called Board No More.
Oh yeah. So Board No More is kind of like we're like, it's like the umbrella of like the production company of like bigger things that we want to put together. So the reason
Gotcha.
why I call it Board No More, if I could explain that, because it's
Yeah,
important. It has an Orthodox meaning. Like, I thought about it through. So one of
nice.
the taglines for Study of Stuff, the podcast, is and the radio, the SOS radio, is re-engineering their social engineering. So since
Mm,
they've engineered us, if we understand how they did it, and not just like theoretically, but look for real world examples of how they've done it, we can revert it. Like, we can invert it, right? That's
dude,
what I want to do,
that's
right?
so important. That's so
It is.
important.
It is.
Because
That's
here's
why.
the thing, I hear a lot of people tell me, they say, "Oh, why do you need to know this deception? Why do you need to know
Yeah.
this, like truth or stuff? Why do you need to
Yeah.
know this? How's that going to help you in your salvation?" What you just said
Exactly.
right there. If you know
It
how
is.
you got tricked, then you can work your way through those steps and reverse the deception. Wouldn't you want to be in
Exactly.
line with truth, since Christ
Exactly.
is the ultimate truth? And you see
Exactly.
what I'm saying? That goes hand in hand,
Exactly. And
right? Yeah.
that's the full intention. Is like, if you see they make a claim on what they want to do to society, then you find a document or whatever, and that's like the conspiratorial stuff. But then you see real world evidence for it, like you see it in your life. You're like, this is from that document, this and that. How do they do that? What are they doing to us? Because really, what they've done is they've studied the human psyche, and they're just using it against us. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yep.
Like they know we need sugar because it's quick access energy, so they just put sugar in everything, or they, like, that
Yep.
kind of stuff, right? Or what they do with corn, that stuff, right? They're using it against us, because I don't want you to get in trouble, so we'll just say corn on the cob. They're using something that God instilled in us, sex, proper sex, marriage,
Yes, for
the thing,
sure.
and they invert
Yeah.
it, and they bastardize it, and they create something else out of it.
They feed
So
into lust. Yeah, they turn it into a,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So basically, re-engineering their social engineering is looking for evidence for that, which is also why I continue to place artists on my radio show that I don't agree with politically, but I make sure I talk about it and show the outcome of it, right? Like, what this is, what are they doing? Music in itself is a hypnotic tool, right? And how it's
Yes.
used, it can be used for positive or for negative. So oftentimes I've discussed this on a few podcasts I've been on. Even the way we approach service and the Orthodox experience, it predicates a lot on, like, smells and sounds and colors and all that stuff, and they are using a lot of the same tools. So if we know how to invert what they've done, we can fix that. So that's what re-engineering their social engineering is. And second of all, going to Board No More, the way that they capture your attention is through boredom. The way that they
Right.
manipulate you best is they get you bored. As soon as you're bored,
Exactly.
you're easily taken advantage of. So then what they
Very
want
true.
most is your attention. And as they say in the new age, where attention goes, energy
Dude,
flows.
I've been noticing that. I've been noticing, like, in the last few years, there's been this weird new trend of like weird videos online that I don't know where they even come from, and they won't even have a purpose. There'll be
Yes.
like people doing something
Yes.
and it doesn't even make sense. And
Yes.
I feel like the whole purpose is just to get you like watching to the end where something's supposed to happen and nothing never happens. And then people
Exactly.
are just in the comments being like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But it's like they're all just feeding into it.
That's
They're
right.
all just like falling into a trap. It's like this
That's right.
weird trap that you're talking about. It's like an attention trap. And
It
it's
is.
and it has to do with where the attention goes, energy flows. It's like an energy sucking, it's almost like a succubus kind of
It's ex-
situation where it's sucking your energy and attention.
It's exactly what it is, and it's described very clearly in a lot of the old social engineering documents, and people actually put their time and effort into studying this and understanding it. So why I call it Board No More is I want to present, you know, the best way I can, content from myself and other people like yourself and other people that I want to include in the network that present information and content that takes people out of the concept of boredom. And there's nothing wrong with consuming information. Of course, you should.
Yeah,
There's nothing
exactly.
wrong with reading a
Yeah,
book or
yeah, yeah.
watching a movie or listening to music. It's like,
Yeah.
what book are you reading? What music are
Yes.
you listening to? And why? And why?
Yeah.
So Board No
Yeah.
More, the concept of Board No More and that project is to create a network and a production company where we help to kind of like a record label, like a boutique style record label where we like it's like a breeding place where we can help other content creators such as yourself, whether they be musicians or podcasters or whatever they want to do, to set up like a distribution channel, one that won't be taken down when they come
Right.
after us, because they're going to come after us.
Yeah.
There are versions of this out there, of course, but the way that we're approaching it is a little bit different. So we're building it in a way where it can't be taken down later, just like how Jay Dyer got taken down in 2021, Alex Jones in 2018, and so on and so forth. We don't want to be a part of that, but we also want to build a community of individuals and content creators that create quality content that keeps people from their boredom, but also educates and helps them, whether it be through humor, through music, through podcasting, all of that together. So basically that's like, it's a bigger project that I'm describing, but we're going to be kicking it off very soon. And a few of my friends, yourself included, will be getting a phone call to help out if they want. I think you guys will want to participate in some of this.
Definitely.
And it's structured. Actually, I created the concept in 2019, but for a different purpose. It wasn't Orthodox at the time. I just didn't realize I was incorporating a lot of Orthodox concepts into it, not knowing so. Logos spermatico is a key component to my life. Even a lot of my music, I realized there's a lot of that present, and there wasn't this. And it's designed in a decentralized way, very much like the Orthodox Church, where
Glory to God.
Truly glory to God, and it works really well. So that's one of our bigger projects that we're going to try to kickstart very soon. So we're moving where we are in Mexico, and I get to go to church finally, because we're moving a lot closer to Orthodox churches.
Cool. Awesome.
As well as our business partner Rawad, who's on the other side of Mexico, and he's going to help us. We're going to all work together to build this Board No More Productions. I think we're going to call it that. We're not 100% sure, but that's what Board No More is.
Awesome, man. That sounds really cool. And like it's just blossoming right now. Like it's just getting started, and who knows like how big that's going to be. Like I think that's going to be something really cool to look for in the future. I know you're also doing some food projects where you're at. Isn't there something called like Mano Made? Is it Mano Made?
Mano Made.
Oh, okay. Talk to us about that a little bit and some of your food projects you're working on over there.
Sure. When we moved over here, we're in Puerto Vallarta currently. Like I said, we're moving in 2 weeks, a week. We started a little business called Mano Made. So in Spanish, so it wasn't just because my name's Mano, but in Spanish, Mano means hand. So it's like handmade, Mano Made. And
sense.
we make smoked meats and a lot of Greek food now, and we just deliver food to people's houses. So you order from us, we make it, deliver it to your house, so we're always constantly creating and making new things, and we're going to bring the business with us to the new place that we're going. So yeah, big things I hope will happen. But yeah, it's been a pretty big success here. A lot of people are into our food. They like the fact that it's you can't really get Greek food here, so that's kind of cool.
I bet.
Yeah, so it's cool.
Was there another food project you were working on as well?
Well, the thing is, the way that we run it always seems like there is, because the way you can run a business here is different than in Canada and the US. Like in Canada and the US, you obviously have a lot more restrictions.
Right.
Here you do not. Like literally, you can pull up to a parking lot and just start serving. Like that's
exactly.
Everywhere. I love Mexico. So we always make a lot of different.
It's interesting in San Diego, you can kind of still get away with it here.
I heard.
You can get away with it here. No, it's all over, dude. Mexicans just pull up and they just set up a table, and they're selling right down the street. There's flowers.
That's
you want flowers for Mother's Day? A block away.
Awesome.
Like, you know what I mean? Like everywhere. So it's It's got a little bit of it. There's some it's like in the middle.
Awesome.
It's like you're not supposed to do. It's like an unspoken kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not telling on nobody. You know, I might set up a table, sell some VHS tapes. You know what I'm saying?
You should. I'm telling you,
I kind of want to, and then I'll throw in some
Sure.
Death to the Worlds in there. I'll sprinkle some of those in there, and boom.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You should. I highly recommend you do it. It's.
I've actually been thinking a lot about that, just like
Do it.
because I like getting out there and talking to people too. I'm gonna be. They'll come for tapes, and I'm gonna talk to them about orthodoxy.
You know what? It has turned that way. It has, like, people will watch my videos and then like we're dropping off and they're like, so what's this punk rock priest?
Right. Yeah.
Like, who, Father Turbo? He's like, yeah. And then the other guy, what's happening?
Father John Valadez, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Man,
So
a
lot of the Mexicans here have been asking a lot of questions. So
yeah, I think that's cool because it's like they are very geared towards traditional Christianity, with a lot of them being Roman Catholic. I think a lot of them just don't even know what Orthodoxy is, and I think once they get like just a little taste of that, man, I think it's going to be a game changer. I think it's going to be a game changer for them.
It is, and it's actually hopefully one of my projects when I get there, when I get to Mexico. Mexico, it's close to Mexico City, not in Mexico City where I'm going, and that's going to be definitely one of my projects. I'm reaching out to the Spanish Death to the World. I'm reaching out to Father John Valadez. We've talked about doing something, and honestly, any Mexican I've spoken to, and I start
because Father John Valadez, he's Mexican. That's a that last name, you know.
Yeah, I think he's Mexican. He made references to a few things. I didn't flat out ask him, but it sounds like he's Mexican. So even when I was talking to Father Turbo, he's like, "Oh, that makes sense. Those are his people." So I'm going to assume, Father John, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're Mexican, but you definitely have an interest.
I'm just going by the last name. I'm just going by the last name here, right? Yeah.
At the end of the interview I did with him, we did talk about Mexico. He was really like into it.
Right.
And so yeah, that's something I'm going to definitely be working on here. And whenever you talk to a Mexican about Orthodox concepts, it blows their mind, because like a lot of their connections are all Roman Catholic, and then they mix a lot of their indigenous culture with Catholicism here.
Yeah.
So even a lot of their takes there, you're like, well, you're not, Day of the Dead. It's not,
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? And then we start talking, and they're like, oh no, but the Inquisition and all that. I'm like, that wasn't us. That was those other guys.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, what other guys? And I start explaining it to them, and they're like, oh, like Greco? I'm like, yeah, like a Greek guy. And they're like, Russo, like Russians? I'm like, yeah, like those guys. They're like, but they're Catholics. I'm like, no, we're not Catholic. They're like, what, the Pope? I'm like, we don't have a Pope. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of work to do there for sure.
A lot.
Yeah, I've been wanting to open up that kind of line of conversation as well in some way. I've been trying to figure out how to do it. I think the table might be the way. That table that we're talking about. Sometimes you just got to get out there and just talk and just set something up and be like, hey, what's up, people? I'm here. Let's talk about it.
Totally. Absolutely.
Also, I know obviously you're a musician, you're a songwriter. You had a band called the Drop Ups. Did that come to an end during the whole Koofy Coop situation? I'm pretty sure that had an effect on your band situation too. Can you describe, maybe actually let's take it back a step and say, how did you get into playing music? First and foremost, how did you get into playing music? What were some of your influences? And then maybe we'll move into the second part of that question.
Sure, absolutely. I started with a cassette deck and 2 tapes, and it's like one of my earliest childhood memories, and making a radio show. I like recording off the thing. So I was always obsessed with music, and I always like sang and did just whatever I could do. My dad gave me a guitar when I was younger. I took some basic lessons. I didn't really take to it, but then in my high school years, early teens, I started playing a Greek instrument called a bouzouki. And I fell in love with a type of Greek music called rebetika. It's like a rembetika. I don't know how to say it with English. It's like a Greek form of blues, and it's from the Greeks from Asia Minor to current day Turkey. Like for example, Saint Paisios. He's originally from those parts.
Nice.
So that music came to Greece. It's like a Greek blues. I fell in love with that, and the bouzouki is a big part of that. So I started playing a lot of music there, but I always was into music, I would say, always. Then I didn't really start putting a band together until a lot later. I'd say 26, 25. I went to music school, like for music business. I worked in the music industry for a couple years. I worked for Sony BMG and a couple other independent small record labels that were part of Sony BMG. So music was always a big part of my life. Went to a lot of shows, all that stuff. Then I started to take it a little bit more serious, and putting together bands. Some of my influences, you asked, Tom Waits, huge influence.
Love Tom Waits so much. Oh man, I can't get enough Tom Waits. It's just that raw, that pure, that truth. You can hear it come through in like just the tonality, just the way he speaks is so true and pure and raw. I love that.
And that's a big part of what music I like. I like raw, dirty, gnarly, gritty. A lot of the hip hop you've requested on my show, I can tell we'll get along.
It's the same thing, dude. It's all truth. It's all truth. I was all about the whole thing that led me to Orthodoxy was my just like latching on to truth. Just aiming for truth, like relentlessly. Like not just like I want the truth, like I'll die for the truth. Like I will either get the truth or I'm gonna die trying to find it. That's the kind of way I had to attack it to get to where I'm at.
Yep, that's what got me.
And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary, but I feel like that's what it takes, man. You have to be willing to like sacrifice everything for the truth, man. If you really like, you know.
Absolutely. And that was actually my guiding principle as well. When I first started the podcast, 2009 or 11, I made a video about the right answer to the wrong question remains a wrong answer. I was like a little axiom I came up for myself, and truth was my only GPS coordinate. That was it. I didn't care
right. Nice.
what I had to burn in the middle. So I totally can relate to that. And back to music, that was always a key connection for me, was that what you just said, truth, rawness, realness, true, unique concepts, lyrics, ideas. So like the Clash, particularly Joe Strummer, his psychology, his like way he would view the world was a big inspiration for me. Tom Waits is a big inspiration for me. Frank Zappa later became a big inspiration for me because
I like him too. Actually, I'm actually a big Frank Zappa fan. A lot of people don't expect that from me, but I like weird abstract stuff. I like people that are honest. I like people that are honest, even if it's something that doesn't agree with me.
Exactly. And Zappa's an interesting character. We're going to be doing an episode on SOS Radio just on
Dude,
Zappa.
If you're going to do that, I'll be there for sure. I'm there for most of them already, but I definitely want to be there for that one.
You are.
Yeah. It's
something we started doing like more history breakdowns. We had a stream a couple of weeks ago where I did that and people really loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing one on connecting Captain Beefheart, Frank Zappa, and Tom Waits.
Oh, Captain Beefheart. Dude.
Yeah. Whoa. You know Beefheart?
Yeah, I know Beefheart. Yes. I got him on like an old VHS. I have like weird, because I find records in VHS, so it like opened me up to just a lot of weird abstract stuff. And I've just been down a lot of musical rabbit holes and like hip hop sample weirdness and just, you know, I listen to weird hip hop, as you've seen. So it's like led me into lots of different. Yeah. I like abstract, weird hip hop.
Me too. That's why, like I told you once privately that I was working on a beat and it's kind of weird and off kilter. As soon as I was making it, I'm like, I think Mark will dig this. So
dude, I definitely want to check that out.
I'm gonna send it to you soon. But like that's always a key component for me for music, was like gritty, like dirty, like vocals, lyrics, big part. I love lyrics. So guys like that, Captain Beefheart, Tom Waits, Frank Zappa, and there is like a psyops connection to Frank Zappa. So anyone out there that's going to throw that in the comments, I'm well aware. We're going to talk all about that on SOS Radio.
Nice.
So that kind of stuff was influential to me in terms of hip hop. Early on, I was a big Public Enemy fan.
Very cool.
Boogie Down Chuck Productions.
Boogie Down Productions, man, for sure.
Big time. So even in the hip hop world, I was always looking for lyrical content. Immortal Technique.
R.A.
the Rugged Man.
Oh, so good.
Drake. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh Lord, you're kidding.
So a lot of that stuff. There was also like a lot of weird Canadian hip hop that never really became super big. That kind of influenced me in terms of the hip hop world, like the Dream Warriors, Tribe Called Quest, those kinds of artists.
Tribe Called Quest is classic.
Totally. And a lot of that stuff was
Midnight Marauders, man. That album, like you could just most of their albums you could just listen to like all the way through, like Low End Theory. Paths and Instinctive Travels and Through Rhythms, or whatever that freaking first album's called. I don't even know. It's a long title, but they're so fire. They're all so Those
Yes.
first 3 albums, you can listen to them all the way through.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like Low End Theory, I love the fact that they sat around thinking about like the bottom end. Like we want to make an album that has this like particular frequency. The bottom end has like a specific position, like it's a character, and then they call it that. Like it's just brilliant. Like they don't make albums like that no more, man. Like they don't put concepts together.
No, they
really
don't.
don't.
People are
And
too distracted to put their whole everything into. That's all they had. They didn't have no cell phone.
Yes.
They didn't have the internet. They had that, and they put out the album when the album came out, and it's like, you know, you didn't get to like, it's just different. It's just you put everything into that. You put everything into your craft, craftsmanship. It's been lost. Craftsmanship. Big Buck 65 has a song called Craftsmanship, and he talks about that. Speaking of abstract hip hop.
Totally.
Him and Gel and Dose One came out with a sick album just like this year or last year.
Last year, really?
Yeah, I think Buck 65 is Canadian. Yeah, it was like this year or last year. Yeah, I think you're right.
He came out around the. I remember him in Chaos before Chaos became Cheese.
Oh yeah. He was dope too when he hit the scene.
Yeah, they were great. Like there was some good hip hop, Canadian hip hop that people completely overlooked. When I went to music school, my teacher for hip hop class was Thrust, and Thrust was an MC on that. There was a track called Northern Touch, and all the Canadian rappers at the late 90s, early 2000s got together on this track, like Cardinal Official, Choclair, Socrates, Thrust, the Rascals. They're all Canadian hip hop artists.
Nice.
Canada had a certain flavor that was really good, and it was about the pop, but then all of a sudden they tried to become American, and that was problematic. Like you never do that. You stick with what you got, because we had a flavor. I mean, go back and listen to some of that stuff. It had like a particular flavor. So Thrust was one of my teachers, going back to that, and he was on that track. And when my class ended, like when we were done, last day of class, he goes, I've never given a white boy an A+, but today I'm giving the first white boy an A+, and it was me. I was like, yeah, so I got an A+ in hip hop history.
That's awesome.
So, but I'm not as big a hip hop head as you are. You go deep, and I'm appreciating that. So I think we need to do an episode. So part of the network, don't worry, I don't want to let too much, but you'll be on as a guest DJ. Don't worry, I got you. Because
nice.
Bringing on some guest DJs. I have a lot of
That'd
really
be awesome.
Cool friends out there. Like anyone watching this, I'm so blessed. A lot of my Orthodox brothers and sisters are just some of the coolest people I've ever met, and I've never face to face met them. So a big part of my plan for next year is to meet you guys all face to face. And I gotta say, like, the talent is next level. The way of thinking, the philosophy is next level. So I'm blessed to know guys like yourself. And so definitely gonna have you on my show, like I had Buck doing a guest DJ, because like when you're calling out tracks, I'm writing them down and I'm checking them out. And I know I can't play all of them because people are gonna get lost. But I'm like, yo, this is a good track. This is sick. So we're gonna do an episode just me and you. Don't worry, I'm gonna get you soon.
That'd be dope. That'd be dope.
Well,
very cool.
You asked me about the drop-ups.
Yeah. How did that? Yeah, because it was a 2-part question. So, like, how did the Koof situation affect your band situation? Because if I remember correctly, there was some definitely. I mean, obviously, there would be some impact there.
Oh, absolutely. So everyone in the music scene in Toronto. So I was building like I'm doing now. Like I like to build community. So I was building a little bit of a community in Toronto, and I started putting on shows called Put Your Boot Up. And it would be like shows where I'd bring other bands from other parts of Canada to Toronto to play, and my band would play. So we started building this little like small community, and it started to blow up a bit. And we were doing really well. Our last show in 2019 was like packed house. We were making money. We were doing well. We were putting out really cool music. We were a gypsy Greek folk punk band. Nice. Lots of reggaeton. I didn't mention reggae. Reggae is like probably one of my top genres.
Love it.
Huge dreadhead. So totally loved it. So a lot of that stuff was infused in my music. So when the whole situation in 2020 happened with all the COVIDs, all my band members were all about the narrative. The entire music scene was all about the narrative.
Like that's so disheartening. That's so disheartening. That would break my heart. It would just break my heart. That would break my heart. That would break my heart. Oh man.
It truly did, and I had a record label owner, and I was signed to his record label for a while in 2017. I had him on my show a couple months ago. Terry from Troubletown. He was one of the very few, and I think there's 5 of us that I know that were like bailed or like fought back. Like literally 5. One guy went to
like 5
Rica.
of us, right?
Seriously.
Yeah, I know that you can count them on one hand.
It was crazy, and
Yeah.
I'm talking about like I knew some like big bands in the scene there, and like they were all about it. So my band, all my bandmates, love you guys or whatever if you're watching, whatever. But they were all about it. They went for the whole narrative. They wanted to do like band practices with like masks. I'm like, I ain't doing that. We had to do
No,
6 feet
no,
sitting in the park playing. I'm like,
no.
I can't do this. I can't do this.
No, no, no,
I
no, no,
can't
no.
do it. I didn't
You're
do any of it.
participating in a ritual.
Yes,
At
sir.
that point, you're
Yes, sir.
participating in a
Yes, sir.
ritual, and these people don't understand what they're participating in. And when you see it, man,
Yep.
you understand you're participating in a demonic ritual. There's no way around it.
Right.
And you could break it down. We could break it down. We could do a whole podcast on that. But it's
We should.
100%. Me and you both know, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, that's a demonic ritual.
If
That's
I'm correct.
disrespect to being made in the image of God.
Exactly.
You
Exactly. If I'm
know,
correct, you have an icon over what would be my left shoulder. The other side, I think that's Father Seraphim Rose I see over there on the bottom.
yeah, I got his book, God's Revelation to the Human Heart.
Oh, that's incredible book.
Yeah, yeah,
He was a game changer for me. God bless him. And he made when I got to Orthodoxy, the whole COVID situation and how you just referred to it as a ritual, all that I had seen it as a ritual, of course, but I
yeah.
didn't see that it was literally like an attack on true Christianity.
Yep.
And like and all their masking and all this stuff that they wanted to do during practice and all that. I just wasn't doing it. I wouldn't do it. So we even practiced
Yeah.
in a park 6 feet apart. I'm like, I just can't do this. So
Yeah.
I recorded a couple of songs and I went to their houses during when they kind of like there was like a little lapse where they kind of took away the first lockdown and people were kind of acting kind of normal. So I went around and I recorded some of my bandmates, and I think that was like one of the last time I saw most of them. And after that, I ducked and left to Mexico. Oddly enough, I don't even know if they know. They may not know that the Gogo Bordello, they're a gypsy folk punk band. Like they're probably the biggest gypsy folk punk band from the States. And they were one of my favorite bands, but not anymore because they kind of like some stuff that I don't like, politically speaking. We were going to open for them through another big Toronto band when they had come to Toronto if we hadn't broken up and I hadn't been here. So that was a trajectory of our band. We were doing really, really good. So if they were all about that, I wasn't. I recently saw that so one of the band members was in another band. Or is in another band called the Low Fills, and since I ducked out, the remaining band members from my band and her band, well, she was also in our band, Laura, she played baritone sax. They kind of combined the two bands together, and now they call themselves like the Drop Lows or something like that. I haven't heard what they sound like, and I honestly I wish them well, and it doesn't bother me. I'm mentioning it because like I'm interested to hear what they sound like. I genuinely, I want to hear what they sound like because I've moved away from all of that, and even the way I make music now isn't the same way, and I don't even want to make music like that too. So I wish them well, but that's what happened with the band. If there was no COVIDs, I guarantee you we'd be a lot more popular. We would have been touring quite a bit, especially opening up for a big band like the Gogo Bordello. So it's a shame, but it's actually a good thing too. And I don't mean that to think positive. I don't mean it that way. My whole concept and idea of how to write music and what I want to do has changed a lot. And I don't think I would have appreciated or liked the trajectory of where we were going. Like it felt
in the bigger picture of it all. Yeah. Looking back, right. It's like, I think it might've been a blessing in disguise, kind of trusting God's providence. And he has something, I see him moving you in a direction that seems even bigger in a different way in the long haul, long haul.
Prediction, Buck Johnson on drums. If I can get
dude, that'd be sick.
If I can get Father Turbo to hit the bass, I don't know if he'll do it.
Oh my goodness! If you could start an Orthodox band with them, the whole it's gonna explode. That would be huge. That'd be awesome in the best way possible. It'd be totally big for Orthodoxy, and it'd be big for. It'd plant a lot of seeds in people outside of Orthodoxy too, man.
Yes.
Because I know you guys would make some awesome music that all types of people of all walks of life would appreciate, man. And the way your musical influences, the way you have so many influences, you could reach a lot of people with a lot of just the techniques and the stuff that you're putting out, man. It can reach a wide variety of people.
Thanks, man.
So I think that's really cool. Yeah, no, and also that song you wrote, Natural Man, man. I was just listening to that the other day and just kind of preparing for this interview and just kind of putting myself in your world. And I wanted you, if you could elaborate, what does that song mean to you? I think I know what it means, but I kind of want to hear from the person who wrote it.
Sure.
Like, what does that song mean, and what does it mean to you? What was your inspiration for writing that?
Interesting that you picked that song to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting that you picked that song. Two reasons. That was literally in the middle of transitioning from my old self to orthodoxy, and I call it my old self, like death to that
Put
guy.
the old man to death, right?
That old man is starting to die. He's still there, and I'm working
Right.
on it.
Yeah, exactly. I
But
hear
that
you.
song to me is literally the midpoint. So there's half libertarian anarcho-capitalist ideals in there, more agorist really than anything. And my
Yeah.
struggle was trying to understand orthodoxy. But if you look at the lyrics, it sounds like it's, to someone that's libertarian, they think it's a libertarian song because I do make some
Yeah.
references to it, like even natural law and all that stuff. But if you
Mm-hmm.
really look at what I'm really saying, is like you can't have any of this business without God. Like you
Yep.
can't have it. You
That's
just
what
can't.
that's what I was hearing. It's
Yeah,
funny because I was
this
like,
is.
I was hearing like a piece of that,
Yeah,
like that libertarian, and I was like, but then
yeah,
I was hearing like something, it moving towards something higher. I was seeing
exactly.
it being directed at something higher.
Exactly. And that's really, so logo spermatico. For anyone that's not familiar with that term, or I highly recommend an episode that David Patrick Harry put out on the
Yep.
subject. It's a great episode. It made me understand things a little bit clearer, and I understood my lyrics better. And then going back to that, I would
Yeah.
say it's definitely present in that song and Noose and a few of my songs. That one in particular that you're asking about, Natural Man, I was struggling with not including God in what rights are. And I was questioning, what are rights? Like, are they even real? Like, is it anything else?
Right.
And I definitely feel, reading those lyrics back now, it's definitely me dealing with that and understanding that God is everything. So therefore,
Yes.
the video that I put together for it was, there's a bunch of old pictures of myself. And then I went back
Yeah,
when
I
I
really
feel,
like that, man. That was
oh,
kind of cool.
thanks.
Just kind of like I don't know. I thought it was just really cool seeing all those kind of old pictures and you doing like the Greek traditional dances. I was like,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
it was a powerful video for me.
Thank you. And I went back and I added a lot of Orthodox imagery to it, and I included Father Seraphim Rose,
Right.
because that was a game changer for me. So that song, to me, looking back at it now, it's me realizing that how Buck put it, anarchy without, like, anarchy and all of libertarianism stuff, it's like Christianity without God. You know
Right.
what I mean? You don't have, and it will lead you to nihilism. It will lead you to debauchery and all that stuff if you do not have God in there. So that song, that's what it represents to me. It's realizing that at best as I can, I'm trying to understand how I am, or how I can be image of God, get closest as I can to theosis, understand what that means. And it's me really dealing with the passions. Now that I look back on it, it was really that, because I remember writing the lyrics, I was also like still engaging in a lot of passions and not thinking it was a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time moving towards an orthodox way of life where I'm trying to deal with them as if it's an illness. So the
Right.
song, that's what the song is to me. When I wrote it, I don't know if I was thinking about all this stuff. I just know that I was struggling with all this stuff. And I'm really happy that I included God in there a lot, capital G.
Yep.
And there is a part where I make reference to the all. That was my reference to hermeticism. Unfortunately, it's still in the lyric, but I wrote the word God. I replaced that in all my lyrics. So if I could
Nice.
just take a second there to talk about that, because it's a
Yeah,
very important subject for me.
for sure.
The all is how it's how not Gnostics and Hermetic people that practice Hermeticism view whatever they call God. They call it the all that permeates and penetrates all things. So whenever I made reference to it, really I was talking about God. But the description I give of what I call the all is the pre-denominational Christianity, Orthodoxy. It is that. And then when I took the all and I just replaced it with the word God, most of my lyrics do read Orthodox. And I did send them to Father Turbo and a few other priests, and they're all like, no, just it's fine. Just replace that and you're good. So there is still the all in a couple of my songs, but really I'm describing God, and I'm actually not understanding Hermeticism correctly, because I'm actually describing our God, like the true God.
Right.
And I just wanted to throw that in there because it's something that bugs me about my lyrics, that I do
Right.
want to make I want to touch upon that, because it bugs me. I went back and I re-recorded Noose, and I took out the all and I just put in God, because I just couldn't put that song out without it.
Yeah. I remember
So
you talking about that.
yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. So sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I have here's an interesting question. It's what does Orthodox represent for you in this day and age, especially in contrast to the transhumanism movement and the Kuf narrative?
The antidote. It's the cure. It's the solution. It's something I think about daily. It's something that never leaves my mind. It's a way of life. It is not a religion. It is not a philosophy. We use those terms to describe aspects of it, but it is most certainly a way of life. And how does it relate to the Kuf and transhumanism? Well, that's clearly an agenda that's being put forth by the great deceiver. And any which way we rewrite that, we rephrase that, or we kind of call it it's this or that. No, it's the great deceiver through and through. It's Luciferianism through and through. It is the Gnostic version of the snake in the Garden of Eden. They view the snake in the Garden of Eden as the person that's passing forward knowledge, gnosis, and therefore gnosis. So therefore, that's the good guy, and they views the God in our God as the bad guy. That's how it's viewed in Gnosticism. To go back to transhumanism, and to go back to taking this book and inverting it, the last principle is gender. So what we're seeing is the trans anything, whether it's transhumanism, trans this, trans that, is transmutation, and it's an alchemical process that they refer to. And that is the great deceiver. And Orthodoxy is the medicine. Orthodoxy is the reality. Orthodoxy is truth. And our Lord Jesus Christ was very clear on that, and had not only was he clear on that, he proved that. Trying to disprove Christ, I think, is a very difficult task when you put all the information and data on the table. Now they can question who he was, whatever this and that. Okay, say, is he Son of God? That's fine, but you can't question that he existed. You can't question that a lot of people believe that he was resurrected. A lot of people saw him resurrect. So to go to answer your question, the Kuf, what's coming, which is why we're building the network, which is what Board No More is going to lead to. We want a solution to these problems, and the solution to these problems are the Orthodox way of life. It is finding your way towards and around a monastery. It is living around there while these dark times are coming. That is if you're Canadian, that is if you're American, that is if you're Mexican, whatever. Because for 2,000 years, and I can tell you from Balkan history, not just Greeks and all of us that were under Ottoman Empire, the way that they survived was around monasteries, and the way that they survived was around orthodoxy, because the monks know how to live off the land. The monks know how to be off grid. The monks have books. They know how to educate. They know how to teach. They know how to, you know what? I want you as my neighbor for many reasons, but one in particular is that you're Orthodox. And I know that if you have a bad thought, or you're going to do something weird to me or whatever, you're going to come and apologize, because you got to repent. I know that I can trust you with my family, because I don't even have to know what's in your mind or whatever. I know the fact that you're Orthodox, you're held accountable, which is why those anarchist things don't work. So it sounds like I'm not answering your question, but I think I'm nailing answering your question. That is the solution to the future. That is the solution to transhumanism, how we combat it. That is the solution to how we combat trans anything. You know what I mean? Like, especially this month, right? Those behaviors that you're seeing out there, people cutting off body parts and doing all this stuff, is a transmutation of something that's alchemical, and it's even referred to in the documents, the hermetic alchemical documents. The alchemical marriage of male and female, the hermaphrodite, is a symbol that they use. They use that consistently. So clearly, what they're trying to put and impose on all of us is this hermetic view of a hermaphrodite. It's half Hermes and half Aphrodite put together, and they make this ambiguous creature that's both male and female. That's what they're trying to do, and you clearly see it in
Isn't Baphomet like a form of hermaphrodite?
Exactly. Half male, half female. And it's a part of their faith. It's a part of their religion, and it's what they want. They want to go in that direction. So to answer your question, Orthodoxy is the solution to most of the issues I see economically. Governance, we need to move towards a proper monarchy. We need to understand that.
Agreed.
And all of these things will be what cures society for those that want to be cured. Let's get real. There's a lot of people that don't want to cure. They don't. There are a lot of people. They call upon the name of Christ, They're charismatically, you know, I'm using that word for a reason. They're charismatic about how they approach that and all of that. And to all the Protestants out there, there's a lot of good qualities that I see in them. But one thing is, my dear friends, just do a little bit of a history dive. It doesn't take a lot to kind of see that there's a lot of issues here. So
Well,
a lot of
there's
them,
a reason why their churches don't teach them church history. You know, they're hiding something from them, and they know once they go down that path, there really is no coming back. Once you see what you're going to see when you go down the church history path, I mean, from a proper, like, do the church history right, do it from a proper, like, go down that path, research the Great Schism, research the ecumenical councils, like,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like, watch some David Urhan
yeah,
videos, you know, some J. Dyer history
yes,
videos. David Urhan's really good as well.
yes,
And
yes,
I don't think you'll want to go back to where you're at right now if you go down that path. I don't think you'll be able to, because you'll be being dishonest with yourself, and you'll feel that, and you won't be okay with that if you're a person who values truth.
precisely. And the reason why I mentioned them is it's referenced in Father Seraphim Rose's a book, Soon to Be Saint, book,
Yes.
Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. And it's very clear that a lot of these versions of Christianity are offshoots of a lot of the things I've just discussed, that we've talked about. And a lot of these things are overlooked because they think that they're calling upon the name of Christ, and but they're not realizing that they have a lot more in common with hermeticism, Gnosticism, than they do with actual true Christianity. And that's something that's overlooked by them, not our community, but their community. And I know a couple of people that left the New Age and just became like evangelical charismatic types. And I'm like, you just took that ideology and just renamed it something else. You know what I'm saying? But they have good intent. A lot of Protestants, like, here's a shout out to Protestants. They can thump the Bible and quote it like no other. And that's respect.
Exactly. That's something I respect their love for the Bible and their love for Scripture, and the Bible studies I feel like are healthy.
Yes.
And I just wish, you know, in terms of the Bible, I love the Bible too, and the Book of James is a part of the Bible, you know, and you can't, you know, if you can't just take books out of the Bible. Like, there's a reason why Martin Luther wanted to take that book out of the Bible. He was like the main guy behind the Reformation, and he was trying to remove the Book of James, and his assistant was like, bro, you can't do that. You can't remove the Book of James. And there's a reason why, because in the Book of James, it's very clear that faith without works is dead. It says it just flat out, like, multiple times. The only time it says faith alone is describing that faith alone is dead without works. That's the only time it says faith alone and that's in the Book of James. And it's a powerful book, you know, and I'm a big on the Bible too. And when I started reading that book, the Book of James, when I was in a non-denominational church, that was just, I kept going back and I was hearing these sermons, and he's talking about God coming down to us like the lights. He's like, there is no ladder to reach God. And I'm like, I'm just discovering like the ladder of divine ascent. I'm like, oh, that's a weird synchronicity, you know. God's providence was just leading me, man. And I was like, something about this doesn't feel right. He's like, yeah, you know, God just comes down, meets you where you're at, and just like does whatever, you know, all you have to do is raise your hand and proclaim your faith. And it just wasn't sitting right with me. I was like, man, something doesn't feel right about this. And here's the thing that really didn't feel right about me. It was not only what was being said, but it was the fruit of the people that were acknowledging and going along with what was being said. I was like, these people come to church like every other Sunday. Like, I mean, not even, it was just like, it was worse than that. Like once a month, or like they come whenever they want, and they just dress however they want, and they just do whatever they want. And I'm like, see, this is what happens when the starting point is separating faith and works. These things go together synergistically. You separate them, and then you literally act out that separation. You say you're faithful, but your works don't show it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, and it all stems from that starting point of accepting this lie that faith and works are separate. And they lie to themselves and they say, no, but if you really have faith, then the works will follow. And they have this whole like Jedi mind trick thing. And how is that working out? How is the fruit of that working out in these churches? It's not. I'll tell you right now. I know there's exceptions to that rule, and there's exceptions. There's people that do the work in there, but it's few and far between, man. I'm talking about like overall consistency wise, like I just saw the fruit of it, and it spoke to me. And then in coming to Orthodoxy, I saw a totally different kind of fruit and a totally different kind of community that I've never experienced before, that is really just the outward expression of accepting faith and works being in unison and working together synergistically, and seeing how that looks when that's the starting point. And it's a totally different ball game, and it's a beautiful thing to see, because people are just working and helping each other and doing whatever they can to do to be self-sacrificial, to give everything they can to benefit their brother, their sister in the church, and the church itself. And they're just giving it everything to Christ and the church, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Amen. Well put. Amen. Absolutely. It's a shame. It's a shame, because I know a lot of Protestants that are well-meaning, and like they genuinely want that connection. You know what I mean? It's just that
a lot of them do.
They're bamboozled, and they're sold this marketing campaign and these slogans. They're very, very much about sloganeering. You know what I mean? They'll say that about Orthodox people as well. Like, oh, you guys make the same references. Yeah, but when we make the reference, we break it down. When I asked you to break down your slogan, it falls apart. It doesn't make any sense. Like, very simple as, like, there's 20,000 denominations or something like that. A Protestant denomination, some ridiculous number. I might be obviously exaggerating, but there's there's
a lot. And they don't splintered off so much. It's hard to keep track at this point.
Totally. And they'll say that about us, and I'm like, well, not really. Like, if you look at it, it's not the same, right?
It's not jurisdictions and denominations. They don't understand what they're. They really.
Yeah, they don't understand jurisdictions, denominations, and they'll bring up Oriental Orthodox and then a few other.
That's a whole different ball. Yeah, no, Lord have mercy.
That's not the same.
Just watch David Erhan refuting Oriental Orthodoxy playlist. If he really breaks that down better than anyone I've ever seen in terms of the Oriental issue. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a game changer for me. I think we're coming to the end of this interview. It's been freaking epic. This has been one of my favorite interviews of all time. I think this one's just really awesome. I think we have really good chemistry, and I think the whole truth thing is just it's something that we have in common. That just searching for truth and holding truth at a very high regard. I think that's something that we both have in common, and I think that's why we get along so well.
Absolutely.
So to wrap it up, I just wanted to ask one last question. What is the main message you want to drive home to the people? If you could kind of just like one final message, if you have a final message that you want to leave the people with, what would that be?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned truth, because the very first video I released when I started my YouTube channel in 2009, 8, 10, around there, was the axiom that I made reference to earlier, which is the right answer to the wrong question remains a wrong answer. So spend more time with the question. So I would say, look for what is true and ask a lot of questions. Don't take anything at face value. Nothing that we talked about. Nothing that we're preaching.
I second that. I second that as well.
Go look into any of this stuff. Go into it for yourself. And I would leave everyone with saying that's the one thing that brought me back to the faith, but also the thing that's guided me throughout the whole way. I never made anything dogmatic, no matter what I believed in, no matter what I listened to musically, or any of that stuff. I don't hold dogma to it. And then someone might say, well, what about the Orthodox faith? Is that a dogmatic thing? I mean, it really isn't when you study it, when you look into the faith and you view it as a hospital and a medicine. So if I was to leave everyone with something, is chase the truth, put that in your GPS coordinates, and ask a lot of questions. And when you think you have an answer, ask more questions.
Right. Thank God, brother. I think that's a beautiful message to leave the people with, man. Thank you so much, Mano, for coming on. It's been an awesome conversation, and I look forward to doing this again sometime in the future if you're open to it.
Oh, 100%. I got lots of plans for episodes to do with you, some panels. We're kind of writing out some stuff. Absolutely. We'll be working together a lot. Really, Mark, I wanted to thank you for having me on your show. I want to thank you for a lot of the work you do. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on your show. You know, I'm a big fan, and I try to support everything you do. Yeah, I really look forward to the next time we chat, my dear friend.
Well, glory to God. Thank God. Anything good that's coming through me is coming from God. So thank you so much again, brother. And man, it's been awesome talking to you. I can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Adios, my friend.
Take care. God bless everybody. Thanks for watching.